Can you imagine a world without any leaders? Do you think that human order would be able to remain without the structural guidance of a president, prime minister, or overall ruler? Hi, I'm Zach Hart, and today I want to talk to you about leadership. More specifically, the highest leadership position in our country, President of the United States. Our country has been led by 44 different presidents through its history. Each has had its distinctive styles and opinions, which guided our nation through highs and lows. It takes a special kind of person to be able to handle all the power that comes with being a president, while still maintaining an ear to the public for its opinion and to gain perception through them. It takes a vast amount of leadership skills as well. Two presidents who chose different presidential paths and had different challenges before them, but did what they could to make a difference, are Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They used a variety of communication techniques and a vision of peace to help American people through 2 world wars. They faced different challenges before, during, and after these wars that defined their place in presidential history. Woodrow Wilson was born in 1856 to a very religious family. Along with his wealth in academia, he used his religious background to shape his beliefs and guide this country while he was president. When he was young, though, his family moved to Georgia. This was just during the times of the Civil War, and this impacted Wilson in a great way. From his experiences there, he learned to hate war, how it ravaged the towns and ravaged the communities. He would never want this to happen to another group of people. He would move on to become a president of what is now Princeton University, and then eventually moved to become the governor of New Jersey. In 1913, though, he was elected as President of the United States and served through 1921. His time in office, though, was filled with international conflicts. He used his moral outlook of letting people solve problems and doing what's best for them to solve those problems, while seemingly reverse his roles and other times in going against popular opinion to handle these crises. So he used a mixed bag of techniques. One of Wilson's biggest tools, though, were his communication skills. He was one of the first presidents to embrace the press and technology. Utilizing the vast communication network that this country had grown into, Wilson spread his message to the people more easily. Wilson also utilized the press conference to gauge public opinion through questions and spread his word through a different communication channel. America fought long and hard with other European forces during World War I to strike down the Central Powers and force them into defeat. Wilson's decision to enter the war was a crucial move that led to the defeat of the German forces and freeing up of huge areas of land which they had overtaken. He made a critical error, though, after the war. Instead of invoking his leadership abilities and virtues he had for our entire country to let the people rule, he allowed English and French forces to ravage the country of Germany and take huge sanctions against them and their land at will. Wilson's indecisiveness could be linked to some major underlying reasons for the breakout of World War II, in which Hitler learned from the errors that the Germans made in World War I. Overall, Wilson faced quite a bit of adversity through his tenure, though. He used his great communication skills and wisdom to influence our country and make it better. He also missed out on some key opportunities in foreign policy, though, that made a huge impact to the world in the future. Had he invoked his vision from the start to finish of a free world and all the virtues that he wished would be granted, history may have told a different story. President Franklin Roosevelt was born to an affluent family in Hyde Park, New York. This wealth afforded him the amazing opportunity to learn at some of the finest educational centers in the country. But he knew he wanted to be a public servant from the start. But he had to face his own personal adversities first. In 1921, he contracted polio, which left his health devastated. Never to be deterred from a comeback, though, he eventually returned to politics and won the governorship of New York in 1928. Eventually, he rose to president in 1932. One of the reasons for his rise to president was his communication abilities, like Woodrow Wilson. In a time that our country was faced with record unemployment and poverty, Franklin realized the need to speak to them and directly and to lay out his plans and positively reinforce the country we would make it through the Great Depression. He decided to utilize radio chats live and for his means of communicating. His fireside chats, as they became known, are legendary, and through those spread his message to the country. In these speeches, he spoke to the public in a more inviting and friendly tone, more your friend and neighbor than your president. His use of communication skills helped him more easily gain public support for his cause. That would come in handy later on when he decided to enter into World War II. After being thrust into World War II by the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt mounted a campaign to help Allied forces take back Europe and Asia. Some of his first decisions, though, left many questioning him at times, but turned out to be the popular decision in the end. Many advisors had directed him to increase his pressure against Japan at the start of the war. Roosevelt saw this as an error. He instead maintained that our strongest and most dire enemy was Germany and Adolf Hitler. Soon, we began to overcome the Japanese, and with the popular attention in America turned towards the Germans. The Allied forces eventually won the war, as we know, and Roosevelt's legacy only grew further. His vision for the world after the Great Wars is where Roosevelt and Wilson split apart in their legacy. Where Wilson chose to allow revenge and anger of the other countries to determine the fate of Germany, Roosevelt envisioned a place where the world was at peace and united together in a common goal. He learned from Wilson's mistakes and helped create the United Nations to keep our world a peaceful place. Well, at least as peaceful as it could be. It takes a different kind of person to want to have the great responsibility of being president. Different in that they must excel in so many areas of leadership. One falter can leave a huge black eye on a presidency. Though neither man has the lasting legacy of being a perfect president, it was Roosevelt who showed the abilities to learn from his errors and others of the past and overcome adversity in a major way. He guided this country out of its lowest lows and into the booming age that America had never experienced before. Wilson too, though, saw America emerge from a world war to the boom of the 20s, but he hesitated in action after the First World War to help solve the social issues facing the world that eventually, potentially, gave Hitler the power to rise up and learn from the failed efforts of the Germans in World War I. Presidents come in all shape and abilities. The two men I've discussed today have had their fair share of detractors from the decisions that they made, but through strong leadership and communication, they helped navigate this nation and build it stronger. Thank you.